much for introducing me. I really appreciate it. There's one thing, actually, that still has to get into that intro. You know, here's the thing. If your achievements are 5 years or older, then you're lagging behind. Alright? So I've got a 3-week-old one. Wait. If you are following me, you know that I just summited Kilimanjaro. Listen. I did not say I just went to Kilimanjaro. I said I summited. Because there's a difference between going to Kilimanjaro and summiting. Now let me explain. Even summiting is different because there's 4 places you can summit. You can summit right at the bottom at Gilmore Summit, or you can go up to the top, which is Uhuru. I went up to the top. Now, some of you might not know why this is special. Very special. Kilimanjaro, of course, is the tallest mountain on the African continent. Yes. And of course, the only freestanding mountain, highest mountain in the world. If you want to know how high it is, just imagine Table Mountain and imagine 6 Table Mountains on top of each other. That's how it is, right? And then of course, when you see every time they illustrate Kilimanjaro, Mount Kilimanjaro, there's white on top. That's ice, my darling. It's not just decoration. Glaciers, right? And because of global warming, they're melting. By 2025, the ice might be gone altogether. It's still there. I found it. And I wanted to go there before it melts. But it wasn't just going there. It was for 3 reasons. First, it was for a cause. Making a donation to deal with the challenge of period poverty through caring for girls. So that's why I went up, to raise money for that. And of course, I overdid myself. I went beyond the target that I had to raise for caring for girls. Of course, we know why that's important. It just doesn't make sense that some girls have to stay home and not go to school simply because they don't have some time. It just doesn't make sense, right? So that's the first reason I went, caring for girls. But the second reason I took this challenge is to inspire women of our country and our continent to dream big, because we can achieve the impossible as long as we can dream them. We can achieve them. We don't even have to tell anyone or negotiate with anyone. You can achieve them. And by going up to Kilimanjaro, maybe you don't understand the challenge. The challenge is not just that, it's the highest mountain on the African continent, and it's that tall. It's the fact that the issue of oxygen and the cold, you get less and less oxygen as you go up. So the 2 things that kill people, some people die, right? Without even reaching Uhuru Summit, where I have been, darling, at 57 years old. I thought the 57-year-old, just in case you had a spring chicken at 30. I was the oldest in the team, and I made it. Right. So if you are 40, you still have time. But here's the thing, the 2 things that people die of when they go up Kilimanjaro is altitude sickness and hypothermia. And so the challenge is not physical fitness. Physical fitness is important, you need it. Yes. Right? But you're not running, we go slow actually so that the body acclimatizes. We only summit on day 4 and so on and so forth. The issue is to keep going on. That's the big issue about Kilimanjaro. To keep going on even when it is tough. And you have to keep moving your fingers. 3 layers of clothes on top of them. And you have to keep moving your fingers because they can freeze. Yes. What keeps you going is not how fit you are, is your willpower. And so I went there and I started to challenge you, to make you aware that you can achieve what you dream. Yeah. The last reason, and this captures everything, almost what I'm about. I went there because I do hard things. Yeah. That's my motto. I don't go for easy. I don't go for easy. I go for hard. I do hard things. And going up Kilimanjaro is a hard thing. I don't have to do it. But I did it. I did it despite the fact that actually my legs have been giving me problems. And I said it's an act of defiance, even on my left leg. Those who are following me on TikTok would know that I was talking. I do live sessions. And as I was hiking, practicing, training for Kilimanjaro, I talked about my legs. And I said, I am going. It's an act of defiance. But it's also a message to all the women, young girls of this continent. Nothing is too big for you to achieve. You can make it. Nothing is too big. And so I hope you join me at some stage in your journey in the quest to do hard things. We'll never achieve anything if we don't want to do hard things. Donating 20% of my salary for the whole time I was VC was a hard thing. Just to fund students, right? Was a hard thing. Because half the time, many of you kick you around anyway. You're vice chancellor, you're management, you're the enemy. And you still want to fund them. Half the time, my children say, but come on, we need this. You can stop this 20%, Ma. And I'm going to say, no, it's committed. You don't pay rent. So you're going to cope with what's left. It's a hard thing. That's why not everybody does it. You want
to appreciate my business.
If you want to change the world, you choose to do hard things. It doesn't matter who says what. Now, let me get on with my talk. Of course, Kilimanjaro is in Tanzania. And I have a special interest in Tanzania. And I've been following the news reports about Tanzania's new president. Well, not so new anymore. Who took office 2 years ago. The new president entered politics after first building an accomplished career as a labor activist. And this leader was born in Zanzibar, a small, economically struggling region that has an autonomous government, although it also participates in Tanzania's government of national unity. Zanzibar's history is marked by centuries of exploitation by foreign traders and colonialists, including the slave trade. The population of Tanzania, of Zanzibar, is noted for its cultural, ethnic, and religious diversity, speaking both Kiswahili and English, in a country that is more than 63% Christian. This leader Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan is a Muslim and wears traditional Muslim attire. Of course, she's currently the only woman president on our continent and the second woman to ever lead a country. The first one was President Johnson Senior. With all this background to draw on, what did the news headlines say when this leader took office 2 years ago? And I quote, Samia Suluhu Hassan becomes Tanzania's first woman president. Close quote. Tanzanians debated whether to refer to her in the traditional African way as Mama Samia. And since then, however, media reports have focused on President Hassan's actions, bringing COVID-19 vaccines into the country after her predecessor, the late John Magufuli, denied the existence of the pandemic in Tanzania. And of course, as you might remember, it is alleged that he died of COVID. Mama Suluhu Samia Hassan also explored new policies to encourage business growth and raising concern about political freedom by arresting political opposition activists. That was Magufuli who arrested political opponents. So Mama Samia Hassan took office at a point where people are arrested, some political opponents, opposition have left the country, there's a denial of COVID, people are dying, and then the president dies of COVID. There's one commentator wrote, at the end of the day, Tanzanians will judge her by her performance and how she led the country. Now, you may be aware, of course, because Mama Samia Hassan took office after Magufuli died, she was never elected. And if you're like me, interested in Africa and its politics and where it's going, you'll also know that Magufuli's election to presidency was not smooth. In fact, it was argued that the elections were not free and fair. And then he passes on, and then Mama Samia Hassan took over. In 2025, there are elections, national elections in Tanzania. And Mama Samia Hassan will contest elections for the first time. At the moment, they had to have her because she stepped in after the president died. As a woman leader on this continent and in the world, I'm very aware of the fact that often when the ship sinks, a woman is thrown in to catch it. It is not the first time. It is not the first time. It happened at KPMG. When KPMG, there were things going on. They called a woman who's not even a CA to lead an audit firm. A woman who was head of HR. Nobody complained. He was there to save the sinking ship. Dare I say, it happened at UCT too. As the ship was sinking in 2018, they got a woman. Yes. She said, now, here's the thing. The reason why I'm also following Tanzania and Mama Suluhu Hassan to 2025, I hope she wins elections. At the moment, you go to Tanzania, she's a darling of the country. She's a darling. Was the CEO of KPMG not once a darling? Because she had just come in and she held it and people felt we are mad. It was the VC of UCT not once a darling because she came in, the shutdown stopped, she was going to where the students are occupying and talking and engaging students. And the newspapers were saying, what a breath of fresh air. And the people within the university were writing her emails saying, wow, we can even feel the stability in the breeze when walking. Now, The women read literature. Women come in to save the situation. Check what happens once the situation settles. The CEO of KPMG, the acting CEO, suddenly, after 2 or 3 years of holding on, people started saying, oh, but she's not a CA. And it took right to go, but you know, she's not a CA. We can't have someone who's not a CA leading an audit firm. And of course, the company, very capable woman, a UCT graduate, young black woman, and she's now in London, Chief People's Officer at KPMG office in London. Woo! Yeah, no CEO, right? They got a CA, a black man to run the yes. So, but why? She came, she swept, right? Right? The same happened, of course, with the VC of UCT. She came, she swept, got the university back on top of the rankings, the business school back on top of the rankings, and then they get a man, come on, we hold it, and then we're gonna put, right? Now, I wanna see whether the Tanzanians are gonna do the same. They're already, when you're following the media reports, you will see that some people are already saying, oh, she's positioning herself to win the election in 2025. They are watching everything that she does. Not as just being good for the country, because she called people who had gone into exile to come back to the country. She released some of the political prisoners. She changed the laws that said young girls who get pregnant whilst they're at school cannot go to school anymore. And she said, nonsense. This is just pregnancy. They should get their education. She changed a lot of things that Mamokgethi had introduced, freed the opposition, and so on and so forth. And now, there's memories 2 years down the line. Is she playing us? Does she want us to love her? So we're waiting to see. I'm waiting eagerly to see whether they follow the script. Right? And that's important, because you've got to read the story of that glass cliff. But here's the thing. The key to building better pathways for women in Africa is not just about opening the opportunity for a woman to lead, but it is also about giving them the space to lead. It is one thing to open the opportunity for women to lead, but we must give them the space to lead in their own way. Not in the way that the man leads. So the idea of somebody who says, but VCs don't do that, it's nonsensical. When we are delivering, you know, there's no wastage. This VC is flying business economy when others are flying business. You know, it was so funny when we go to conferences in Africa, I remember, and the VC of the top university of the continent goes to economy. The rest of them end at business. Agent Basson will not tell you. They will not tell you that and why. They will not tell you why the VC of the leading university on the continent would ask for a lift from the driver of the other VC, because she doesn't roll with the driver, she drives herself. Or her children drive her. Why? Because she thinks it's a waste of money. We've got too many needs. Right? Africa and the world both need different leadership to help us get out of the mess that our past leaders have put us in. And creative leadership needs to arise out of the multitude of factors that make a woman who she is. Because being a woman, of course, is important, but it's not all who we are. It's not everything that we are. It is not the whole story. It is not the whole story. It's an important part of the story, but it's not the whole story. So I'm very much aware of that. And it's an important thing to understand intersectionality. Because otherwise we expect another woman to do what I do. Because other people say, no, but what's wrong with that? Other women VCs don't do that. No. We have different value systems. That's why I don't want an inauguration. Because what happens at an inauguration? Do you know what happens? It's a party for the VC who's taking over. You get speaker after speaker telling you as the VC how amazing you are and how much they're going to support you. Listen, I know I'm fabulous. Why spend millions to tell me that I'm fabulous when I know it already? Why? We can use that money for better. That's what I said. Why? I'm sorry if you don't like it. That I know I'm fabulous. I'm sorry. But there is no reason, in my view, there is no reason in a country such as ours where student debt is so high for any university to spend 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. It doesn't make sense to me. But why doesn't it make sense to me? It's not just because I'm a woman. It's because of my value system. As an African woman who grew up in an environment that says we cannot just throw a party in the family when children's school fees are not paid or the children haven't eaten. We don't do that. So what I'm saying is, even though we are all women, we have different value systems. And so when you appoint a woman into a position, don't just tick the box, done. You must know that they bring all of themselves, including their value systems. And some of them, like myself, are not willing to leave their values outside. The masculinity of power. We've been led by the masculinity of power in this world, all throughout. And it's interesting, when masculinity and the coloniality of power fails, it's the very men who start saying, no, that one is this, now vote for us. Or no, they start showing each other, they want to capture us women, now we must agree with this one because this one. No. It is the masculinity and the coloniality of power that got us to the mess that we are in. And the masculinity of power wants us to believe there can only be one style of leader. And anyone who's different is expected to assimilate into the roles that have been created by the masculinity of power. So, women leaders are expected to become one of the boys. And men from marginalized groups, including those who are gay or non-binary, are expected to conform as much as possible to the same model. If you don't conform, it's like, VCs don't do that. And that's why I want to spend a short time talking about the masculinity of power and the invisibility and underestimation of black women in higher education leadership today. If truth be told, in this world is masculine. And it is the masculinity of power that marginalizes women. The number of women enrolled in undergraduate studies at South African universities outstrips that of their male counterparts. But it's the opposite when it comes to postgraduate studies, as well as at the professorial level and senior academic levels. We all know the shortage of women professors is one of the burning issues in this country. And truth is that the picture is almost the same in corporate or beyond academia. And here's the thing, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying women should just be made professors even when they don't deserve, or they should just be promoted or made vice chancellors. Hey, if a woman, have you ever seen a woman being criticized? Sometimes I wish they could put CVs of all the vice chancellors online for us to compare. Because here's the thing, because I don't know if you read in the papers that the vice chancellor of UNISA, one of the biggest criticisms was that she's underqualified. And I said, what? of in leadership, but it is only the women who face that kind of scrutiny. And of course, they will not tell you that even as I step down as Vice Chancellor, I still remain a B1 rated scientist. But you know why? Why continue to pursue the rating system? Even as I was an executive, because I've been an executive for many years, and I continue to write and apply for ratings. When it expires, I apply again. It's because I know when they find nothing, I'm Jolie, I'm Pussy, I'm John Chimani, they look for things to hold. And then they'll start saying, she doesn't qualify. So I get a rating just to make it work because I can. Because I can. Now I know Vice Chancellors don't lead the rating, but just check who's got it. I still have it. But you are any woman who is in a leadership position today, you have the burden. We have the burden. We have the burden to prove that women can do it. And that's why I tick the boxes that I don't even have to tick. You know why? Because not only am I a woman and am I black and small, I don't look too bad. Here's the thing. When you look like me and you haven't ticked all the boxes, even the unnecessary ones, they say you slept your way through. I make sure. Don't I join them 17 with us? You must tick all the boxes, but this is the burden of us women in the front. Why? Because things have to change. We do the extraordinary. We climb mountains. We do this. So that the world can say, yes, they can do it. Because here's the thing, guys. Every time a black woman fails, they draw a conclusion. All of me. They don't do the same with a black man. Or with a man, or with a white woman, with white people. They don't. It's us black women, right? I mean, how many articles have you seen about the Vice Chancellor of University of Pretoria stepping down just before they consider for the second term? Menanji Toli. I didn't run. I had nothing to run away from. And the stories, of course, the alleged allegations are huge, right? The allegations are huge. So, in fact, it should be filling newspapers. But it didn't. What? Because the allegations are huge. GDP, it's an allegation. And meantime, yours too. Oh, did they go to town? It's the masculinity of power. Masculinity of power. And the burden that we, those of us in the fighting front, and by the way, I'm not here. I know many of you think I'm doing this. I'm not doing this. Don't want to talk about what happened at the University of Pretoria, where this GBV case comes from. Whether it's true or not, we read allegedly that in fact the person was charged and they were found guilty. Allegedly. Neither I was never charged. I was never charged. There's no detail. There's just allegations, fluffy things flowing around. Give me names. Let's put it down. Let's deal with it. No. But where there's an allegation that this person was charged, they were found guilty, and so they decided to step down. No, you get one article, you put it on the WhatsApp of people, they delete it, stop, don't offend other people. No! The masculinity of power is amazing. But this is the burden for those of us in front. We've got to know that the fight is harder. And when you're in front, you're breaking ground, you're hitting the glass ceiling. We often talk about the glass ceiling, but glass, when you hit it and it shatters, it doesn't just shatter, it damages you too. So we are hurt, some of us, in the fight in front. But we are doing it because if we don't, our children and our children's children will find the situation the same. So I'm not saying women should just be promoted. I'm saying we've got to understand the struggle of women and we've got to ask difficult questions. Why is it that 30 years, almost 30 years after democracy, we have so few women who have risen to the highest levels of leadership in higher education in this country? What is it that we are not doing to ensure that more women, especially black women, get to those levels and stay there? What is it? We just bring them in to clean up, and then we bring someone who then owns the glory. Right. And of course, they're going to kick you out, rough, so that they don't credit you for the work that you did. My hope is that those who have eyes can see. Because we are the only people who can stop this. We know, for instance, that there are few women CEOs and that academic management is slow to appoint women. And that only Parliament in South Africa can boast parity between men and women. In most cases, the numbers paint a dismal picture, despite the triumphalism of our democracy. The representation of women in government has made us think that we are doing much better than we really are in the leadership space. We see rows and rows of women in Parliament, some taking prominent positions. In the media, women leaders in the political and judicial arena capture our imagination, and we congratulate ourselves on gender transformation. Of course, these achievements are important, but in research and higher education, and most of the time in corporate sector too, the picture seems very different. Especially when you start to disaggregate both women and leadership, and you ask important questions about which women. Every time they talk about gender representation, ask which women and what kinds of leadership. My concern is that for all the demographic transformation in government, this does not translate to leadership. Even the relatively positive achievements of women in government masks the real relations of power within social and political movements. Shireen Hassim, former professor at Wits, who's now in Canada, argues that questions concerning who has voice and agency remain largely obscured. There's only questions about representation, get women in, but when it comes to voice and agency, not much. And this is not to say that women have not benefited from the new procedural and institutional arrangements. After 94, I'm going over time, right? That? Okay. Deputy President. So the point that I'm trying to make is that representation is important, but it is not sufficient for gender equality. Don't lie to ourselves. We should never lie to ourselves. Appointing women is one thing, but it doesn't mean we have achieved gender equality. Because they may be underestimated, they may be invisibilized, they may be actually, when you are really tough, staying 5 years in the position at UCT, it was very difficult to remove, you know. They had to marshal a lot of people, including a certain professor at Stellenbosch, to make sure that you are armed, you know, journalists, what, many things, right? So, We shouldn't be happy. Remember, even with the Deputy Chief Justice, we were so determined. We want the woman to be appointed. Once he's appointed, people were called. It's like the fight is over. It is not. It is not. We don't know what's going on in there. And so we've got to ask, how is it going? How do we support and continue to advocate for them? Because it might just be that they are thrown into this sinking ship to sleep, and once it's clean, they'll get a man to take over. So if you are in the room and you're looking towards getting into leadership position, I'm challenging you to get determined and committed to doing hard things, because it is a hard thing to take on leadership position in higher education as a black woman and as a woman in general. Feminism, unfortunately, hasn't delivered on the dream because it ignored the fact that we are not just women, that some of us are black, some come from lower socioeconomic class, and so on and so forth. So you should be determined for the tough fight, because the glass ceiling, we might have cracked it, but it's not down yet. The battle is here. I thought if you achieve excellence, if you do everything that needs to be done and you do it excellently, and I just remain myself because I'm not willing to give up who I am, I thought it would be over. I will win because you're doing everything excellently. But actually, it doesn't. In fact, it attracts jealousy. It attracts jealousy from peers because you are just too much. You're showing us up. And so it is uncomfortable to have you around. So be ready. And to be ready means be prepared to work hard. If I can climb Kilimanjaro and summit Uhuru, you can do anything. Just don't lose who you are. Because sometimes it is who you are that's going to make you win. I would never have done many of the things that UCT achieved once I was VC if I had given up who I am. It is who I am that brought the university to stability during major shutdown after shutdown. It is who I am that helped us win funds as I go talking to donors all over the world. It is who I am that did that makes students feel seen, feel heard, feel recognized, feel that they matter on campus. Gardeners and cleaners feel that. So who you are is important. So own it and face the future with it, and don't expect it to be easy, because it is not over. It is not yet over. Thank you very much.
When you were talking about the president of a question that came into my mind, like, will women, like, no matter like what we do, even if we go the extra mile, like, will it be like we will always be judged in whatever we do? Even if like we take those extra boxes, even if like we do like the extra, like let's say if I wanted to advise, like let me do the PhD just so people don't ask questions, but they will still ask questions, they will still look for extra, like what is wrong with me? Even the women themselves will look for extra, like what is wrong with me? Like, that is my question.
So just maybe to rephrase, Phakeng, you mentioned how we always have to tick these invisible boxes. The question is, will it ever be enough? Or will we ever be able to go beyond that? Number two.
Hello, my name is Mamokgethi, and I have a question directed to both of you.
So both of you speak about breaking the glass ceiling quite a lot and women leadership. But I want both of you to perhaps answer about women leadership and this glass ceiling and the mental health that women suffer, and how society is not kind to them and how we expect it to be empowered. And the burden that comes with that and how women have, like women in powerful leadership spaces and how the pressure of mental health that we face in these spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Siyanda nolala lo uthethayo Prof ndizayijongisa kuwe this one. So we have seen your work, and we have seen how you have defied the odds, and we have seen how you did more than just what's written in your job description. So to the leaders who are here today and to those who are not even here, what can you say to them when it comes to the leadership that goes beyond just what is written in your job description? Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to try to mix all of them. First, let me start with the last question. When you get appointed to a high office, you need to know that when you get into the office, you find things in that office. You find history, legacy, tradition, ways of being, doing, seeing, and so on and so forth. But you also bring things. You don't come barehanded. So I was very conscious about what do I find, what do I bring, and who will I be when it ends? Who will you be? I was very conscious that it's 5 years, it's going to end. Am I going to allow the things that I find to consume me? Because the office of the VC is, you can consume, you can become their office. I was clear that I'm not the office. I'm not my job, I'm not my title, I'm not my qualification. I'm Kheti. And I want to live as Kheti. And so it was a conscious decision. I don't know what other people do when they get into an office like that. But for me, it was a deliberate process of thinking about what do I find. And of course, the timing of the appointment is also important. Just time of contestation. And so the decolonization agenda was on the table, the decolonization project. And I asked myself, we talk about decolonization, nobody talks about decolonization of executive leadership in universities. And I thought, the things that I find in this office, ways of being, seeing, and doing are so colonial. And black people, students and staff, activists and alike are happy with it. And so I thought, whatever I'm uncomfortable with, I'm not going to do it. Because it's not. So, and then I'm going to do me because I am me. So in 2019, in June, while students were writing exams, it was like towards the exam. It was so cold. I said to my boys at home, it's so cold, the exams are going towards the end, the students are in the library, it's freezing. I wish I can take them coffee. And my eldest son said, why don't you buy them chocolate? And that's how I bought Kit Kat. In fact, he bought Kit Kat. And the other one drove me, and I gave the students Kit Kat. I wanted to give them coffee. It's just too complicated to give them coffee. It was freezing, right? So, but there's no script. And that's why it is important never to lose who you are. Because that's who I am. And that's who I am. I Jennifer Son will not tell you. I've got one child. I only gave birth to one child. One son, who's 33. But I've got 5 children. including my one, who I treat them like mine. They get a car just like my son would before he moved out of the house. They get everything. Those who need fees are paid, everything. If I have to buy from underwear to hairstyle, that's what we do. But it's the same thing that I feel for the students who are in there. But that's just me. So what I'm saying is that there's the job and then there's you. You come into the job, you come as you. You do the job, but you also do you. So it's got nothing to do with job description doing you, right? How long is it going to take? You know, the issue of ticking invisible boxes, I'm arguing for normalizing outstanding women performance. It's a fight. I don't know how long it takes, but at the moment, it's not normalized. Of course, it's not the only thing that we have to do. You see, when I tick invisible boxes and say, and I'm trying to say, we can do it. I mean, in some ways, I also make other black women uncomfortable. And that's why the jealousy and the whatever, then they get captured by the men, and then they are the ones who get sent to do the dirty work, and then when the dirty work happens, they say, oh, it is women who don't want it. So the battle, unfortunately, is much more complex. Because high achievement attracts envy and jealousy and unfair scrutiny. I mean, you should read a director's book, and see the things the director is proud to say he did and he said. But nobody calls him a bully. He did worse than I did. I hold people accountable. You've got to tell me why the mother has got discussions from outside. You are responsible and you must tell me. Okay? The least you can do is to write to them and ask them where they got it because they are confidential. And you are the custodian. Okay? I'm holding you accountable, right? And you can call me a bully. The writer talks about how he shouted, how he fired the security guard. Even as the book is out, everybody's reading, nobody's critiquing that. But here's the thing. We, as black women, allow others to rubbish those among us who are doing well. And no black woman is writing about the writer. No, nobody. It's like it's normal. He's written it in a book, even he's bold to say he did that. I mean, even to say he drank cyanide and he lived to tell the story. I'm not a chemist, but hey, cyanide? Excuse me. Excuse me! After telling us that you are tapped in your car, and in fact it was found that it wasn't true, and the story just disappears. But nobody says he's a liar. He's a liar. Nobody says that. But here the country gets told he lied to the faculty board and senate by saying some DVC signed a non-disclosure agreement for personal reasons. No lie, I leave it out there for you. But the rater just prove it. Nobody says it's lying. Nobody says whatever governance here, there, or there. And what I'm saying is that those inconsistencies are about, it's about time that other women raise them. Because if you don't, what is the problem? Why is he the only one talking? What the problem? What the problem? Why are all the other women happy? Why are they living with the nonsense? And that's what I'm saying. So it's not only the ticking of the boxes, right? We need the ticking of the invisible boxes, but we need other things too. We need the man to understand that if I'm in your committee and I'm the only woman, and when I say something, You don't say anything, and the man repeats what I just said, and suddenly the VC is excited. Good point. And when I go, but he's saying exactly what I said. Now all of you men can say, oh, she's so full of herself. Instead, you as the leader have to be aware there's only one woman in this room. I'm making a conscious decision. I'm going to hear her. If they don't acknowledge what she's saying, I'm going to make sure that they do. So there's a lot of things we can do. Men who are in leadership positions have a role to play in that. They shouldn't say, Kgethi is strong. We'll be okay. We'll be okay. It shouldn't be that. So there's a few things. But the thing that I can do as a woman leader is to make sure that I've ticked invisible boxes. And so, nobody, check all the accusations. No one can accuse me of incompetence. Nobody. Nobody. There should be things. There should be things that they can never accuse you of. They should never accuse you of stealing money. They should never accuse you of jolling at work. They should never accuse you of drinking too much. Like, hey, when she sees a bottle of wine, she never stops. And they should never accuse you of it. So they must find other things that are not so tangible. And they can't even give you information. They say you are a bully. But they don't tell you who you bullied, when, and why do they call it a bully. They don't. Okay, it's because they can't find something tangible. Okay, so they create a perception. So they can win and take you out and pay you out. I'm a million, but you should make sure that you don't get caught on the other things. That's the thing about the invisible thing. I can't remember the third question. The third question, I think, was for both of us.